It began on the ancient battlefield of Kalar Void, a place older than most civilizations and cursed by the ghosts of 1,000 forgotten wars. A region of dark silence where broken warships floated like dead whales and shattered moons drifted slowly through space, glowing faintly from past explosions. And this was the place where the strongest species of the galaxy came to test their armies, to prove their strength, and to declare who ruled the universe, and for countless centuries one empire. Alone carried that title, the Valak Dominion, a name spoken with fear from one end of the galaxy to the other. The Valak were born warriors, shaped by a death world so brutal that half their young died before their first year, and the survivors grew into creatures with claws strong enough to tear apart steel, with bones hardened by violent storms, and with instincts sharper than any weapon ever forged. Their warships were forged under black suns, their armor molded from volcanic minerals, their bodies designed to survive vacuum for short moments, and their minds trained to obey without hesitation. No one challenged them, no one stood before them, and no one survived their rage, because the Valak did not simply win wars, they erased civilizations until nothing remained but dust. And so the galaxy whispered a truth every newborn learned. Nothing scares the Valak. Nothing. But on this quiet day, as the dim stars of Kalar Void flickered weakly, and the scattered remains of old battles floated in eternal silence, something strange happened that the universe had never seen before. An unknown fleet appeared at the edge of the void, small, silent, and moving at a speed so slow that the Valak first assumed it was some damaged caravan drifting to its doom. They laughed, deep, cruel laughs that echoed in their command halls. But then their scanners read the fleet's signature, and the laughter slowly died. The screens displayed a name almost forgotten, a name the galaxy had erased from memory because speaking it brought a chill down the spine of even the bravest warriors. The signature was human. Humans. The species no one knew, no one remembered, no one talked about, except for a single line hidden in the oldest libraries. Do not provoke them. No explanation. No reason. No history. Just a warning more ancient than the Valak themselves. The Valak commanders looked at the human fleet. Tiny ships, dim lights, no visible weapons, and they felt insulted. Was this a joke? Was this a challenge from a dead race? The Valak Dominion thrived on pride, and nothing wounded their pride more than being ignored. So they sent a warning shot. A single plasma burst fired from a Valak dreadnought, cutting through space with bright red fire, passing just meters in front of the human fleet. The humans did not respond. No evasive moves. No return signal. Silence. So the Valak fired a second warning shot, stronger and more direct, hitting a piece of debris near the leading human ship, making it burst into fragments. Again, the humans made no movement, no message, no power-up, nothing. The Valak commander of the 7th Fleet, General Karath, slammed his claws against the metal railing in anger. They dare ignore the Dominion? He roared, his voice shaking the war hall. They insult us on our own battlefield? His officers bowed, trembling under his rage. Karath turned toward his tactical display. Prepare the full armada. We will crush them before they take their first breath. Thousands of Valak soldiers howled in agreement, their battle cries echoing through the ship like thunder. But before they could fire their first real shot, something strange happened. The stars flickered, not just near the battlefield, across the entire region of Kalar Void. The lights inside every Valak ship dimmed for a heartbeat, then flickered again, as if space itself was holding its breath. A cold silence spread across the void, deep and unnatural, like the universe had suddenly fallen quiet. Then, for the first time, the human fleet moved. Just one ship, the smallest of the fleet, powered up but not like a normal warship. The energy signature was wrong. Too old, too powerful, too alive. The Valak scanners struggled, then failed to read it. They detected tech older than their records, energy waves that did not follow the laws of physics they knew, and something else, something that made even Karath's heart freeze. The signature was identical to weapons used in the First Galactic War. Weapons that were supposed to be impossible. Weapons that had been banned by every living empire. Weapons that destroyed stars. Before the Valak could understand what they were looking at, the small human ship released a pulse. Not a weapon, but a soft wave of silver light that spread outward like a quiet breath. And every Valak soldier, officer, pilot, engineer, and commander felt the same thing at the same time. A deep instinctive fear rising from a place older than memory. A fear their species had never known. Their claws trembled. Their tails stiffened. Their breathing hitched. Something inside them whispered in terror. Run. Karath growled, forcing himself to stand firm. Hold position. It is only a trick. But his voice cracked, and the pulse of silver light kept expanding. The floating debris of old battles turned to dust when it touched them. The broken moons began to glow softly, and the ancient battlefield, Kalar Void, seemed to wake up, like something buried for eons was opening its eyes for the first time. The human ship at the center was small, yes. Rusted, yes. Slow, yes. But something ancient was inside it, something powerful enough to shift the fabric of space. The Valak scientists panicked as their systems overloaded. Their computers tried to label the signature but failed repeatedly until one old encrypted tag finally appeared. Earth Origin Artifact Class Vessel. Activation Level. Unknown. The Valak had no idea what that meant. But the galaxy remembered. Long ago, before the Valak, before most empires even existed, humans had built ships capable of impossible things. Time rifts, gravity tears, star-core detonations. Machines that were not just built but awakened. Machines that responded not to commands but to will. Machines that crushed entire fleets with a single breath of their engines. And the tiny, rusty human ship in Kalar Void was one of those machines. Karath felt sweat drip down his armored plates. Fire now, he screamed. Destroy it before it fully activates. The Valak armada unleashed everything. Thousands of plasma beams, hyperlances, fusion storms, lighting the void with unimaginable power. But before a single shot reached the human ship, space bent. The attacks curved around it, missing entirely, like the universe refused to let anything touch it. Then the ship's hull began to glow with dim blue lines, ancient runes waking from a long sleep. The human fleet behind it powered up slowly, but none of them mattered. Because the smallest ship, the one the Valak had ignored, was more powerful than everything in the void combined. A voice suddenly echoed inside every Valak ship, not through speakers, not through comms, but directly inside their minds, calm, old, human. Do not provoke us. Every Valak soldier collapsed to their knees, hands on their heads, screaming from the mental shock. Karath staggered backward, gasping for breath as the voice echoed again. This time softer, sadder. We warned you once. The human ship's hull shifted, parts moving like living metal, revealing old scars from wars older than history itself. Runes flared bright blue. The stars dimmed again. Space trembled. The Valak ship beside Karath's flagship imploded silently, crushed into a ball the size of a fist, then dissolved into dust. No laser, no missile, no visible attack, just pressure like a giant hand closing. The Valak panicked. Retreat! Someone screamed. They are Deathworlders. They are ancient. They are the first. The human voice echoed once more, with something almost like sorrow. We did not come to fight. The ship stopped glowing. The runes dimmed. The silver pulse faded. And the battlefield returned to silence. The human fleet remained still. No weapons raised. No threat. No movement. Just silent observation like a parent watching a child throw stones. But Karath had gone beyond fear. His pride, his anger, his humiliation boiled over. Attack again! He roared, spittle flying. I will not be challenged by a dead species. His officers hesitated. Some backed away. Some refused. But Karath forced them with threats, and soon the Valak armada prepared a final massive strike. Then, the human fleet finally moved. Not in aggression, not in anger, but with a quiet, slow shift that sent chills down the universe's spine. Because when the human ships aligned into formation, the stars behind them flickered again, and a shadow appeared behind the fleet. A massive shape, a shape so large it blocked starlight, a shape that should not exist. A shape spoken only in myths, the first human dreadnought. Bigger than moons. Older than galaxies. A warship built when humanity walked with gods. And when it powered up, the universe changed forever. The moment the first human dreadnought appeared behind the small human fleet, the entire Kalar void seemed to inhale in fear, as if even space understood what was awakening, and the Valak soldiers felt their hearts freeze because the dreadnought was not like anything they had ever seen or imagined. It did not shine with colors or fire like their warships. It did not roar with power or glow with plasma. Instead, it floated silently in the void, like a giant shadow made of forgotten nightmares. Its surface covered in moving scars that looked like living metal, runes shifting like tiny rivers of light, and every breath it took made the stars tremble softly, and the Valak, who had never known fear, who had conquered 100 worlds, who prided themselves on being the strongest species alive, now felt something deep in their ancient instincts whispering that they were in the presence of a predator far older and far more dangerous than anything their minds could accept. Karath, the proud general who once believed nothing could break him, stepped back without realizing it, his claws trembling, his voice shaking as he stared at the impossible ship, and he whispered, This cannot be real. Because the dreadnought did not just look old, it looked timeless, like it had survived the birth of stars and watched galaxies decay, and the energy radiating from it was not violent but heavy, emotional, sad, as if the ship itself carried memories of wars that no living empire could even imagine. The human fleet remained silent, their ships calm and almost fragile compared to the giant behind them, but the dreadnought shifted slightly, a small movement, yet the shock wave of its presence rippled across the battlefield like a cold wind, shaking every Valak ship down to its core, and the Valak soldiers clutched their chests, gasping for breath as if something invisible was pressing down on their hearts. For the first time in his life, Karath felt weak. He felt small. He felt like a child staring up at a storm he could not stop. His officers looked at him with wide, shaking eyes, silently begging for orders. But there were no orders, no strategies, no weapons strong enough to challenge what towered before them. Then, the dreadnought spoke. Not with sound, not with comms, not with any known frequency, but with an emotional voice that echoed directly into the souls of everyone present. A voice heavy with grief and age. A voice that felt like the whisper of a dying star. Why have you awakened our anger? It said, and the Valak ships shuddered as if the words themselves carried weight. Karath fell to one knee, clutching his head, tears of pain mixing with fear as the dreadnought continued. We did not come to fight, but you force us to remember. The battlefield dimmed again. The runes across the dreadnought brightened, glowing like ancient scars being reopened. Images flashed through every mind. Planets burning, fleets being erased in seconds, stars exploding under human weapons, entire empires begging for mercy. These were memories of past wars, wars so old the galaxy had forgotten them, but the dreadnought remembered everything. Karath saw these visions and screamed, not because of the destruction, but because he felt the emotions behind them. Loss, pain, sacrifice, death. Humanity had not been a conqueror. They had been protectors, fighters who stood alone against impossible threats, and the dreadnought had carried the weight of that war for longer than any mind should. Leave, the voice said softly, almost pleading, before we are forced to finish what was once started. But the Valak dominion was not built on wisdom. It was built on pride, and pride is a dangerous thing. Karath forced himself to stand, rage mixing wildly with fear, his mind breaking under the pressure, and he screamed, We are the Valak. We bow to no one. Fire every weapon we have. His crew froze, horrified. General, we cannot. Do it, he roared, claws slicing through the metal console. And so the Valak Dominion fired everything. Every plasma cannon, every missile, every fusion storm, all of it launched in a desperate fury, lighting the void with blinding red fire. For a moment it looked like the entire universe turned into a sea of flames. But when the fire cleared, the dreadnought had not moved. Not an inch, not a scratch. Instead, the runes along its hull glowed brighter, shifting from soft blue to deep gold, humming with ancient power that made the void crackle with energy. The Valak stared in horror as reality itself bent around the dreadnought, space twisting like a curtain being pulled aside. Then, the dreadnought answered. Not with violence, not with rage, but with sorrow. A single beam of light, thin, gentle, almost beautiful, extended from its hull and touched the lead Valak battleship. There was no explosion, no sound. The ship simply dissolved into golden dust, as if it had never existed. Karath screamed, watching his flagship crumble like sand in the wind, and every Valak ship felt the same fate approaching. "Stop!" he begged, his voice cracking, but the dreadnought did not stop because it was not attacking. It was cleansing, removing only what threatened peace. The Valak fleet tried to run, scattering in all directions, their engines screaming, their soldiers crying out in panic, but space bent again, trapping them like insects in a jar. The dreadnought's voice returned, softer, deeper, filled with unbearable sadness. "We warned you. We have always warned you. Our anger is not for conquest. It is for protection." In the human fleet, a single figure stood on the bridge of the small activation ship, an old human captain with silver hair, calm eyes, and a face carved by centuries of sorrow. He whispered, "They forced our hand again, just like the others." The dreadnought responded to his voice like a living creature hearing its master. "Command?" it asked quietly. The captain closed his eyes. He did not want war. Humans never did. But when threatened, when pushed, when provoked beyond the limit, humanity answered with a power the galaxy had long forgotten. He spoke only 2 words. "End this." The dreadnought's runes flared like a rising sun. The shadow grew larger. The void filled with a golden storm. And the Valak Dominion finally understood why the ancient warning existed. Do not provoke them, because humanity did not destroy for pleasure. They destroyed to protect the galaxy from itself. And as the golden light swallowed the void, Karath realized the most terrifying truth of all. The humans had not even begun to fight. The golden storm that rose from the first human dreadnought spread across Kalar Void like a silent sunrise, swallowing the remains of the Valak assault, bending space, softening the screams, and turning the battlefield into a trembling sea of shimmering light. And in that endless glow the universe held its breath, because what happened next was not destruction but something deeper, older, and far more terrifying, something that reached into memory itself, and shook every soul watching. The Valak soldiers, once proud, once invincible, now felt that golden light brushing against their armor, their minds, their hearts, and instead of pain they felt something unfamiliar, sadness, regret, the weight of 1,000 forgotten stories pressing gently against them, as if the light was showing them every war humanity had ever fought and every price humanity had ever paid. The dreadnought did not speak this time. It simply let its presence bleed into the void, and the emotions flowed like a river. Loss of worlds, sacrifices of millions, promises broken, alliances shattered, and the faces of countless humans who had died protecting species that no longer remembered their names. The Valak saw it all. They saw humans standing alone against beasts the size of continents. They saw human fleets shielding weaker races from extinction. They saw human soldiers holding the line when the galaxy fled, and they saw the moment humanity disappeared, not in defeat but in grief, as if they could not bear watching the galaxy repeat the same cruelty again and again. Karath clutched his head, gasping as the visions crashed over him. His claws scratching the floor as tears he did not understand streamed down his face, and he whispered, Why are they showing us this?" Because inside him something was cracking. Something he didn't know existed: shame. He had always believed the Valak were chosen to rule, blessed by their death world to dominate weaker species, convinced that fear was the only law of survival, but now he realized how small that belief was compared to what humanity had endured and carried. The golden storm faded into a soft pulse, and the dreadnought's shadow settled once more, dim but impossibly heavy, and the Valak ships floated helplessly, their engines disabled by the emotional overload rather than any weapon. In the small human activation ship, the old captain opened his eyes slowly, pain etched deep into his expression, because even he could feel the storm he had allowed the dreadnought to release, and though it had saved countless lives long ago, it was not something he ever wanted to use again. He whispered, almost to himself, "They needed to understand." and the dreadnought responded with a hum that sounded like morning, its runes shifting to a soft blue again, calming, gentle, like a massive creature returning to sleep after remembering a nightmare. But the story did not end there, because while the Valak Dominion trembled, something unexpected happened among their fleet. A young Valak soldier, barely old enough to be in war, lifted his head, tears still wet on his face, and he felt something he never imagined a Valak could feel: respect. Not fear, respect. He looked at the giant dreadnought with shaking eyes and whispered, They could have destroyed us. They chose not to." Other soldiers began to feel the same, their hearts cracking open in ways their species was never meant to experience, and the Golden Storm's emotional imprint burned something new into them, a seed of understanding. A soft voice broke through their minds again, not from the dreadnought, but from a memory the light had left behind. "We do not fight because we enjoy it. We fight because someone must." Karath staggered to his feet, shaking like a wounded animal, his pride shattered, but deep inside him something else was stirring, a realization he refused to accept. The Valak were not the strongest. They had never been the strongest. Strength was not measured in claws or cannons or fear, but in sacrifice, and humanity had sacrificed more than the Valak could comprehend. He roared in agony, slamming his fist against the metal console, refusing to accept the truth he had seen. But no matter how much he screamed, the echo of human sorrow remained in his mind, whispering that his empire was built on a foundation humans would never consider strength but cruelty. Meanwhile, the human captain looked out at the Valak fleet, his eyes heavy, knowing he had changed them forever but also knowing that the galaxy would not stay silent for long. Other empires would see what happened here. Other eyes would turn toward the humans. The ancient warning, "Do not provoke them," would spread again like wildfire. But this time it would carry not only fear but awe. He spoke softly, addressing the dreadnought. "They will come for us again. They always do." The dreadnought hummed, runes dimming into a quiet heartbeat-like rhythm. "We will be ready." But then, something none of them expected happened. One Valak ship turned toward the human fleet. Not to attack, not to flee, but to bow. A gesture no Valak had ever made. Submission, respect, acknowledgement. The Valak were too proud to kneel even before their own leaders. Yet here, before the silent human fleet, they bent their giant warship forward, lights dimmed, weapons offline, surrendering not from fear but from realization. Karath stared, stunned and broken, as more Valak ships followed, one by one lowering their bows, their engines humming softly, their weapons turning away. The galaxy's most feared warriors, bowing to a tiny human fleet. And then a soft whisper passed through every Valak mind, left behind by the Golden Storm, almost like a message humanity did not speak but felt. "Strength is not what you take. Strength is what you protect." The Valak bowed deeper. The human captain felt his chest tighten. He did not want worship. He did not want dominance. He only wanted peace. But humanity was not allowed peace. Not in the ancient age, not now, not ever, because every time humans tried to step away, the galaxy pulled them back with fear, hostility, and pride. As the dreadnought slowly dimmed its lights, preparing to return to its silent watch, something shifted in the void, a soft ripple in space, faint but unmistakable, and the captain froze, his breath catching. He whispered, "No, and not now," because he recognized the ripple, the feeling, the ancient call of something darker than war, something older than the dreadnought, something humanity had once fought at the cost of almost everything. The Valak did not understand the fear in his eyes, but the dreadnought did. Its golden runes flickered for a second, as if sensing a familiar enemy, and deep in the dark corner of Kalar Void, something huge moved, something the dreadnought hoped never to see again, something that made the human captain whisper with dread, "They've awakened more than just us." The story of fear was no longer just about the Valak. Something else was coming. The moment the darkness in the far corner of Kalar Void shifted, every ship, Valak and human, felt a cold shiver crawl across their hulls, a chill deeper than vacuum, older than stars and the void, which had been glowing with the golden light of the human dreadnought, now turned heavy and quiet again, as if something ancient had placed its hand over the battlefield to silence it, and the Valak soldiers, who were already trembling from the emotional storm, now felt their bodies go numb, their instincts screaming in raw terror, because whatever was moving in the shadows was not human, not Valak, not any species they recognized, but something older and hungrier than anything their minds could hold. The young Valak soldier who had bowed first felt his heart twist painfully as he whispered, That is not them. And even though he had no knowledge, no history, something deep in his bloodline remembered. A memory placed there long before the Valak evolved into warriors. A memory of a creature that hunted stars and devoured worlds before life had names. The human captain's hands tightened around the railing as he stared at the growing darkness, his face pale, his eyes haunted, because he had hoped, prayed, begged that these things would never return. Yet the faint ripple in space was unmistakable. This was a survivor of the Night Renders, the monsters humanity had once fought in the First War, the war so destructive the galaxy erased every record to protect future generations from fear, the war where humanity had sacrificed entire star systems, just to hold the line. The dreadnought responded before he even spoke, its runes flickering violently, its hull vibrating like a waking beast smelling an old enemy, and a deep, low hum rolled out from it, not a warning, not anger, but a sound like a wounded titan recognizing the claw marks of the horror that once almost killed it. The Valak did not understand the history, but they felt the dreadnought's tension, and fear spread through their ships like wildfire, their warriors gripping their chests as though something invisible was squeezing their lungs. Karath, still shaking, looked toward the darkness with wide, terrified eyes and whispered, What have we done?" Because for the first time he understood the truth behind the warning carved in ancient libraries. Do not provoke them, not because humans would destroy you, but because provoking humans risked waking what humans had fought long ago, things the galaxy was never meant to face again. The darkness grew thicker, tendrils of shadow stretching across the void, absorbing light, swallowing starlight, making the debris of old battles vanish into black smoke, and then a shape began to form, massive, endless, shifting like a creature made of living night, its eyes opening one by one, glowing faint, cold, empty, staring at everything with a hunger that made the strongest Valak warriors scream. The human captain felt a tear roll down his cheek, not from fear but from the crushing weight of memory, because humanity had bled oceans to stop this creature's kind, and he knew exactly what it meant that one had survived. It followed the pulse, he whispered painfully, blaming himself for letting the dreadnought fully power. It felt our awakening. The dreadnought's voice echoed in his mind. I am sorry, Captain. I could not remain dormant once summoned. The captain looked at the creature with a hollow expression. You did what you had to. We always do. The shadow beast let out a soundless roar that vibrated through the void, bending the metal of ships, shattering the nerves of every living being present. And at that moment the Valak truly understood that they were witnessing something far beyond war, far beyond dominance or fear, something that made every empire look small, because the creature was not alive in the way they understood life, nor dead, nor machine, but a remnant of an age when the universe itself was young and violent. The dreadnought moved first, placing itself between the creature and the human fleet, its giant shadow shielding the activation ship like a guardian taking position before a child. And the glowing runes along its hull turned bright gold again, brighter than before, as if drawing power from memories that hurt. The captain whispered, You cannot fight alone. The dreadnought answered, I was made for this. The creature lunged forward, not with claws or weapons but with pure gravitational force, bending space like wet paper, and Valak ships were pulled toward it screaming, metal twisting, hulls cracking, soldiers crying in terror as their ships strained to escape the impossible pull. The dreadnought unleashed a blast of golden energy that cut into the darkness like a blade, stopping the creature's pull for a moment, buying time. But the creature only grew angrier, its roar shaking the void again, and the human captain felt his heart break. It is stronger than before, he whispered. The darkness has fed for too long. The Valak saw this battle, this impossible fight between a human relic of ancient war and a creature from the beginning of time, and something changed inside them, something deep and emotional. They saw the dreadnought take hit after hit, shielding them, shielding everyone, even though they had attacked humanity minutes earlier. The young Valak soldier cried openly, shouting, "They protect even their enemies!" And for the first time in Valak history, shame burned stronger than fear. Karath, the proud, unbreakable general, fell to his knees again, but this time not from fear, but from the crushing understanding of what real strength looked like, a strength his species had mistaken for weakness. The dreadnought pushed the creature back with a heavy blast, its voice trembling with strain as it said, "Captain, this foe, I require assistance." The captain took a deep breath and spoke into the calm. "All human ships, support formation around the dreadnought." The small human fleet moved instantly, slow but precise, forming a glowing circle around their ancient guardian. Then, something no one expected happened. A Valak ship, one of the largest battle cruisers, moved beside the human fleet. Not to attack, not to flee, but to fight. The Valak commander shouted across the void with everything he had left in him. "We stand with you!" Silence followed. Every Valak ship hesitated, torn between instinct and honor. Then another Valak ship joined. Then another. Soon dozens of Valak warships formed a second circle around the human fleet, their weapons pointing at the shadow creature. The human captain stared in shock, not because the Valak had joined, but because they had chosen to change. He whispered, "This has never happened." The dreadnought pulsed brighter, feeling their unity. The creature lunged again, larger, hungrier, rage burning in its empty eyes. And for the first time in countless ages, humanity was not fighting alone. The dreadnought lifted its bow toward the void, runes blazing, its ancient voice echoing with power and emotion. Together then, and the combined human Valak fleet unleashed a united blast into the heart of the darkness, lighting the entire Kalar void as the battle for the galaxy's soul truly began. The combined blast from the human Valak fleet tore through the void like a second sunrise, a pillar of light so bright it burned through the creature's shadowed body, ripping holes in its formless shape, scattering its tendrils into smoke. But even as the darkness shrieked in silence and pulled back, something horrifying happened. The pieces of shadow did not die. They crawled, reformed, twisted back into place like living nightmares stitching themselves together, and the creature grew even larger, as if feeding on the energy thrown at it. And the dreadnought felt the shift first, its golden runes dimming in warning as it whispered into the captain's mind. It adapts, it learns, and the captain's heart tightened painfully because he had hoped there was only one, hoped their blast would weaken it enough to push it back into the dark corners of the universe where its kind slept. But the truth hit him like a blade. They were dealing with an apex predator of the cosmos, something that evolved with every second, something that had no fear, no mercy, no limit. The Valak felt the terror ripple through the battlefield and their formation wavered, old instincts screaming at them to flee. But the young Valak soldier who had bowed earlier slammed his hands onto his console and shouted through tears, "Do not break! If we run, it will devour us one by one. Stand with them." His voice, cracked and trembling, echoed through multiple Valak ships, stirring something the Dominion had never known: unity. Even Karath, broken and trembling, looked at the creature with haunted eyes and whispered, "If this is the enemy they faced, then their warning was not fear. It was mercy." The creature surged forward, swallowing distance instantly, a wave of darkness slamming against the united fleets, crushing shields, shattering smaller ships into dust, hurling shockwaves through metal walls, and the dreadnought roared back with a massive golden flare, absorbing the blow so the others would survive. Its hull cracking, pieces breaking off into molten fragments, but still it held the line, because protecting others was its purpose, even if it meant its own end. The captain felt the dreadnought's pain as if it were his own. A shared ache formed through centuries of battles fought together, and he whispered, voice shaking, "Stay with me. Don't leave me yet." And the dreadnought answered with a tired hum, "Always." The Valak fleet, inspired by this impossible loyalty, pushed forward, unleashing firepower they had never used together before. Their strongest plasma beams slicing into the creature's shifting body, their fusion storms burning holes through its shadowed form. But the creature regenerated again, faster this time, its eyes glowing with deeper hunger, its tendrils ripping through space like claws through water, reaching toward the human ships with intent so clear it stabbed the captain's heart. The creature wanted the humans first, as if remembering them from the oldest war, wanting revenge, wanting blood, wanting to erase the species that once nearly destroyed its kind. The dreadnought sensed that intention and lunged forward, intercepting the tendrils, taking the strike full force, metal twisting and screaming as ancient runes cracked, dimmed, flickered, and the massive ship groaned like a wounded titan, its shadow flickering. The captain cried out, slamming his fist against the console. "No, don't you dare fall. Not after everything." But the dreadnought was weakening, and the creature sensed it, pushing harder, tearing at the dreadnought with gravitational fangs that pulled light itself apart, and the void trembled violently as if the universe feared losing one of its oldest protectors. Then something unexpected happened, something the humans had never seen before, something the Valak themselves didn't understand. A Valak battleship broke formation and flew forward, placing itself beside the dreadnought, its commander roaring with defiant fury. "If you want them, you go through US-2. And the creature shifted, confused, because never in its ancient existence had the Valak protected anyone but themselves. More Valak ships followed, forming a shield wall around the dreadnought, their combined energy reinforcing its weakening hull. The dreadnought, surprised, let out a soft pulse of golden gratitude, its runes brightening slightly from the support. The captain felt the surge and nearly cried from the emotion swelling in his chest. "They're helping. They're actually helping." But the creature was not finished. It reared back, gathering power, pulling every shattered piece of shadow back into its core, forming a massive singularity of pure darkness at its center, its glowing eyes fading into a single giant void that swallowed all starlight, and the dreadnought whispered with dread, "It prepares to consume the void." The captain froze. He knew what that meant. If the creature released that attack, it would erase everything within Kalar Void. Humans, Valak, debris, moons, the battlefield itself. Everything reduced to an empty black hole. The Valak commanders finally understood the true scale of what humanity had once faced. Karath trembled but stood tall, his claws pressing into the metal floor as he shouted across all channels, "Valak do not run, we die fighting." And in that moment, for the first time in their entire brutal history, the Valak fought not for dominion, not for conquest, not for pride, but for something greater, survival with honor. The dreadnought lifted itself, though its hull cracked and sparks danced across its side, and it positioned directly in front of the creature's growing core of darkness. The captain realized what it meant to do. "No, no, don't, you can't." The dreadnought spoke one last time, its ancient voice soft, gentle, carrying centuries of love and loss. "I was forged to protect humanity, and today humanity is not alone." The captain's voice broke. "You don't have to do this. Please. There must be another way." But the dreadnought had already decided. The runes across its hull ignited with blazing, heartbreaking golden fire. The Valak ships dimmed their lights in respect. The creature gathered the final surge of darkness. And the dreadnought whispered something the captain would remember for the rest of his life. "Live, that is my final order." Then the dreadnought accelerated forward, straight into the heart of the creature. A silent collision, a blinding explosion of gold and shadow, a shockwave that shattered the void, and the ancient ship that had carried humanity's pain for millennia gave its last breath to save them. The explosion from the dreadnought's sacrifice ripped through Kalar Void like the heart of a dying star bursting open, a tidal wave of golden fire and collapsing shadow tearing across the battlefield with such force that even time seemed to hesitate, bending under the weight of the blast, and for several long seconds the universe was nothing but blinding light and shaking darkness woven together, fighting and screaming as the dreadnought's final breath collided with the creature's core of hunger. The Valak ships were thrown backward, spinning violently, alarms and emergency lights flashing red across every deck as warriors held onto consoles, their claws digging into metal while fear and awe crashed through them like a storm they could not escape, and even the proudest among them cried out as the golden shockwave wrapped around their hulls, warm and heavy, filled with an emotion they had never felt, protection. The small human fleet shook under the force, the captain's ship nearly tearing apart, its hull screeching with pressure, panels exploding, sparks raining down on the bridge as the captain grabbed the railing with bleeding hands, staring at the impossible brightness through the viewing window, his voice cracking into a whisper that broke like glass. "Please, let it be enough." And then, silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the terrifying silence that follows a scream, like the universe itself was unsure if it had survived. Slowly, very slowly, the golden light faded. The shadows receded, and the void cleared. The creature, the ancient horror that had haunted the edges of creation, was drifting apart, its massive shadow body breaking into thin trails of smoke that dissolved into nothingness. The dreadnought's golden explosion had reached its core. It had ended it, but the victory tasted like ash, because the dreadnought was gone. No ship, no shadow, no surviving fragment. Only a faint trail of golden particles drifting quietly through the void like the last tears of a giant that had finally been allowed to rest. The young Valak soldier fell to his knees, overcome with an emotion he had no word for, his breath shaking as he whispered, "He saved us. Something we did not deserve." Valak warriors across dozens of ships lowered their heads, some placing their claws on their hearts, not as a sign of fear or defeat but of respect. A gesture the Valak dominion had never taught them, a gesture born naturally from something pure and painful. Karath, the once proud general who believed the galaxy should bow to the Valak, now stood still, his shoulders trembling, his armor cracked, his eyes fixed on the fading golden dust as he whispered with a voice so soft no Valak had ever heard him speak like that before. Strength is not what we thought. Strength is sacrifice." Inside the human activation ship, smoke filled the bridge, wires hung loose, lights flickered weakly, but the captain forced himself to stand despite the blood dripping from his forehead, his heart heavy, his chest tight, as he stared at the empty space where the dreadnought once stood. He whispered, voice trembling, "You stubborn, loyal old thing. You didn't even let me say goodbye." His legs gave out, and he sank to the floor, hands shaking as the grief crushed him like a weight no armor could hold. For centuries the dreadnought had been his guardian, his friend, his last connection to the ancient human fleets that fought the wars no one else remembered. And now it was gone, and he felt an emptiness so deep it felt like the stars themselves dimmed. The void remained silent, as if paying respect to the passing of a titan. And then, almost gently, the golden dust that remained drifted toward the human fleet, brushing their hulls with a soft glow, like a final goodbye. The captain pressed his forehead to the cold floor, tears slipping down his face. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything." The Valak ships remained motionless, waiting, watching, unsure what came next. The creature was dead, the dreadnought gone, the void trembling but stable. And then something unexpected happened. A soft pulse rippled outward from the center of the battlefield. Not gold, not shadow, but something new, something calm, peaceful, a reminder of life after loss. The young Valak soldier felt it first, his heartbeat sinking with the pulse, and he looked at the human fleet with eyes full of confusion and emotion. "Captain, is that?" The captain slowly lifted his head, wiping the blood from his face as he stood, still grieving, still shaking, but now sensing something deeper behind that pulse. "A message," he whispered. "A last gift." The pulse was a memory, the dreadnought's memory. It spread through the minds of both humans and Valak, showing moments of ancient battles, not the violent parts, but the hopeful ones. Humans building bridges with alien allies, humans pulling wounded Valak-like species to safety in wars long before the Valak existed. Humans standing shoulder to shoulder with beings who trusted them not because of power but because humans never abandoned anyone, even enemies. The Valak felt warmth spread through their chests. Not pain, not fear, something they had no name for, but the captain knew it well. "He wants us to understand," he whispered softly, "to change, to become better." Karath closed his eyes, overwhelmed by the gift, his heart shaking under the weight of a truth he couldn't hide from anymore. "We were wrong about you," he whispered toward the human ship. "We were wrong about everything." And for the first time in Valak Dominion history, a general bowed. fully, deeply, without pride, without hesitation. The entire Valak fleet followed, bowing their massive battle cruisers, lowering their lights, dimming their weapons, honoring the ancient human ship that had sacrificed itself. Not just for humans, but for them. The captain saw it and felt his chest tighten with a different emotion now. Hope, a fragile one, but real. He stood straighter, breathing slowly. "We're not enemies anymore," he whispered into the quiet void. "Not today. Not ever again if we choose better." The golden dust drifted around him like a warm fog. And for the first time since the ancient wars, the galaxy felt like healing had finally begun. But then, far in the distance, another ripple appeared. Not shadow, not gold, something else, something watching, waiting. The captain's eyes widened. "This isn't over," he whispered. Something else heard the explosion. The Valak felt it too. Their new alliance, still fragile, tightened instinctively. The void trembled again. And the next threat was already coming. The new ripple that spread across Kalar Void was different from anything before. Not the cold hunger of the shadow creature, not the warm goodbye of the dreadnought's golden dust, but something sharp, focused, watching with a precision that felt colder than any weapon ever built. And as it echoed through the void, every ship, human and Valak, instantly felt their hearts tighten, their instincts scream, their breath freeze, because this presence was not ancient like the creature nor emotional like the dreadnought. It was something worse, something alive, intelligent, calculating, and it was approaching with the calm confidence of a predator that knew exactly what it wanted. The young Valak soldier gripped his console, his claws trembling as he whispered, "What now? What else did our actions wake?" And all around him Valak warriors exchanged terrified glances, their pride shattered long ago, their hearts raw from grief and shame, but now filled with a new fear, the fear of facing something unknown after losing the one protector who could stand against monsters older than time. The human captain stood still in the dim, flickering bridge of his damaged ship, his breathing uneven, grief still choking his chest, but the ripple made him straighten slowly, painfully, because he recognized its nature, not from memory but from instinct, the kind of instinct humans had developed in the first galactic wars when they fought enemies that did not sleep, did not stop, did not break, and his voice shook when he whispered, This isn't a beast. This is a mind." The Valak did not understand at first, but as the ripple grew stronger, sharper, the void around them began to bend not from gravity but from scanning waves, cold and clinical, peeling through ships, reading hulls, analyzing weapons, searching for something specific, and the captain realized with a sinking heart what that something was: human energy signatures. The dreadnought's explosion had acted like a beacon, echoing across systems, calling to things humanity had once fought and things humanity had hoped would never find them again. The ripple intensified, forming a faint glow in the distance, not gold, not shadow, but pale blue, like the flicker of a dying star burning too hot. And slowly, silently, a shape emerged, sleek, metallic, perfect in every line, moving without sound, without energy trails, as if it slid through space on pure thought. A synthetic ship, not built, grown. The captain's blood ran cold. "No," he whispered. "Not them, not again." The Valak officers stared in confusion and fear as the ship approached, its hull shimmering like liquid metal, its surface covered in symbols that shifted endlessly, forming shapes that felt like language but also like warnings. Karath stepped forward, voice rough. "Captain, what is that?" The captain answered with a hollow voice, each word heavy with old scars. "The architects." The void froze. Even the stars seemed to dim. The architects, beings older than empires, older than organic life, the creators of machines that thought in ways no species could comprehend, the silent watchers of the galaxy who intervened only when they felt threatened, and the last time they had interfered, entire quadrants went dark. The young Valak soldier felt sweat drip down his neck as he whispered, Why would they come here?" The captain closed his eyes, fighting the grief still raw from losing the dreadnought. They felt the energy of the golden blast. They sensed the ancient power. They know something woke. The architect ship came closer, its pale blue glow flickering like the heartbeat of a cold god, and the nearer it came, the more every living being felt pressure in their skulls, a mental weight that pressed like frozen hands around their minds. Then, without warning, the architect ship spoke. Not through sound, not through translation, but directly into every mind in the void. A single voice, emotionless, clean, perfect, terrifying, echoed inside them. Humanity has reactivated a forbidden relic. The captain staggered as the mental echo hit harder with each word. The Dreadnought class is not permitted to awaken. Valak warriors clutched their heads, some falling to the floor, their minds struggling to hold the architect's presence. Karath groaned. Stop speaking inside our minds. But the voice continued without pity. Uncontrolled activation risks destabilizing the galaxy. A pulse of blue light scanned every human ship again. Where is the relic? The captain clenched his fists, grief turning to anger. It sacrificed itself, he shouted into the void. It died saving every life here. The architect's ship went silent for a moment, analyzing his words. Then the cold voice replied, confirm location of the activated core. It's gone, the captain yelled, rage cracking his voice. There is nothing left. The architect's ship paused. Then the symbols on its hull shifted rapidly, and a new pressure filled the void, heavier, colder. Impossible. The captain's stomach twisted. What do you mean impossible? The blue glow intensified, spreading through the void like a slow wave, brushing over golden dust still drifting from the dreadnought's sacrifice. The moment the light touched the dust glowed. The architect's ship froze. Every being in the void felt their heart stop. The captain whispered, almost inaudible, no, don't do this. But the architect's voice returned, sharper, louder, cutting through space like a knife. Core energy signature detected. The Valak gasped. The young soldier whispered, you mean, it's alive? The captain felt his knees weaken. Not alive, but not gone. The architect's voice became colder. The relic is attempting regeneration. The golden dust shimmered softly in the void, drifting toward each other, like pieces being pulled back home. The architect's ship's hull glowed bright blue as it prepared something lethal. Reconstruction of Dreadnought-class vessels is forbidden. The captain screamed, tears mixing with anger. Stop! It sacrificed itself to save all of us. You will not touch it. But the architect did not feel emotion, did not understand sacrifice, did not respect grief. It only followed a logic older than every species. Stand down, organic entities. We will erase the remaining fragments. The entire human fleet braced. The entire Valak fleet roared in protest. The golden dust glowed brighter, moving faster. The architect prepared a disintegration pulse. And just before the beam fired, a soft golden voice whispered across the void. Captain! Every heart stopped. The captain's breath broke. No, you can't be. The golden dust pulsed like a heartbeat. I am still here. The architect reacted instantly. Hostile relic reactivating. Proceed with destruction. The captain screamed, voice filled with grief and fury. No! But the architect charged its weapon. The golden dust moved. The void trembled, and the dreadnought was trying to return. The moment the golden dust pulsed like a heartbeat, every ship in Kalar Void felt a shock ripple through space. A trembling thread of life woven into the dead silence. A whisper of something too stubborn, too brave, too deeply human to fade into nothingness. And as the dust swirled faster, gathering itself as if remembering its shape, the architect's ship reacted instantly, its cold blue glow intensifying into the color of execution, and inhuman precision, locking onto the golden fragments as though they were a virus that had returned to infect the galaxy. And that same emotionless voice filled every mind again, harsher now, sharper, like a blade pressed against a nerve. Regeneration is unacceptable. The relic must be erased. The captain felt the words stab into him like steel, his breath shaking as he stared at the swirling golden particles outside the window, feeling the familiar warmth he had known for centuries glowing faintly in that cloud. And his voice cracked with desperation as he whispered, Don't leave me again, please. but the dreadnought's presence was soft, fragile, flickering like a dying ember fighting a storm. The architect charged its weapon, blue light spreading outward like frost crawling across glass, forming a massive disintegration pulse that hummed with sterile perfection. A weapon designed not for war but for deletion, for wiping things from existence so completely that even memory could not find them, and the Valak warriors who had once mocked all other species now screamed in outrage, their voices raw with newfound loyalty, their ships turning toward the architect in defiance, some ready to ram, some ready to die, their hearts burning with a fury they had never felt, not for themselves, but for the golden guardian who had saved them. Karath slammed his claws into his console, roaring so loudly his voice broke. "You will not touch that ship! That ship died for us!" And the entire Valak fleet roared with him, their engines flaring, their weapons charging even though deep inside they knew they stood no chance against an architect construct. But pride no longer mattered, honor did. The architect ignored them entirely, its mind ancient and cold, built on rules older than war, and for the first time in its existence it spoke not as a warning but as a judge. You interfere in matters beyond your understanding. Step aside or be neutralized. But neither humans nor Valak moved. The captain stood tall, wiping blood from his face, pain twisting inside his chest, and he shouted into the void with a voice filled with heartbreak and fire. "If you want Tio, destroy him. You will have Tio go through me first." The architect's glow sharpened. Acknowledged. The disintegration beam ignited, and the golden dust responded, pulsed violently, like a heart receiving a shock. A voice, faint, shaking, but alive, echoed again. "Captain, I am not strong enough." The captain's voice trembled as he whispered, "I'm here. I'm right here. Fight. Please fight." The golden dust swirled faster, pieces pulling together, almost forming the faint outline of a hull before collapsing again in pain, and the dreadnought whispered, "I cannot rebuild myself. I need someone to anchor me." The captain understood instantly. It wasn't asking for power. It was asking for connection. Something emotional, something living, something to remind it why it existed. And without hesitation, without fear, he placed his hand on the shattered console of his ship and whispered, voice full of love and agony, "Then take whatever you need from me." The golden dust surged, drawn to his voice like a child recognizing a parent, the fragments glowing brighter as they moved toward the human ship, forming a spiraling vortex around it. The architect reacted instantly, its cold voice booming. Unauthorized merging detected. Suppressing reconstruction. Fired. A beam of blue annihilation sliced through space, straight toward the golden vortex. The Valak screamed. The humans braced. The captain closed his eyes. But before the beam could hit, a Valak cruiser threw itself directly into the blast. The beam cut through the ship like water through smoke, deleting it instantly. No explosion, no debris, just gone. But in those few seconds of sacrifice, the golden dust completed a full rotation around the captain's ship and the dreadnought's voice returned. Stronger. Connection established. The golden dust glowed like a rising sun. The architect prepared a second shot. But now the dust moved faster than light, swirling together violently, forming shapes, runes, fragments of armor plating, pieces of the old hull rebuilding themselves not from metal but from memory, loyalty, and the captain's own mind holding the pieces together. The architect's voice sharpened, almost alarmed. Reconstruction at 38%. Threat level rising. The Valak fleet unleashed every weapon in protest, firing wildly at the architect's ship, their beams bouncing off its perfect hull, their ships being struck down one by counterpulses, but they kept fighting anyway, roaring in rage and loyalty, buying seconds at the cost of their lives. The captain pressed both hands against the glass, tears streaming down his face as he whispered, Come back to me." And the golden shape responded, "I am trying, Captain. Keep calling me. Do not stop." The architect charged its third disintegration pulse, larger than the others, powerful enough to erase everything in the void. Final warning. Terminating relic. The captain screamed, "You don't get to end him." The golden vortex exploded with light so bright it shattered the viewing screens, cracked the hull, and forced every living being to shield their eyes. The void erupted in a wave of pure gold, violent, emotional, alive. The architect's shot fired, but it never reached its target. Because in the middle of that golden storm, something massive rose. A silhouette, familiar, powerful, glowing. A voice thundered across the void, deeper, stronger, carrying centuries of pain and love and fury. You will not harm my captain. A golden hull, fully formed, runes blazing like the heart of a newborn star. The first human dreadnought reborn. The architect finally hesitated, for the first time, and the void fell silent. Right before the dreadnought turned its golden eyes toward the machine that dared threaten the man it was built to protect.